Welcome to BGP Expert Talks, diving deep into the world of agri-food tech with the brightest experts, delivering key insights for corporate decision makers. I'm Floor Buitelaar, Managing Partner at Brightest Partners, and we're here today for another BGP Expert Talk, and this time with expert Tony Hunter. He's been an expert at BGP since day one. And in short, Tony is a food futurist speaker, food scientist, author, and strategic foresight consultant, specialized in the future food, beverage, and agriculture industries. I know that's quite a lot. But he consults to global food companies and enablers in the industry with distinctive combination, both scientific qualifications, business experience, and detailed insights into food technologies, which basically brings a unique perspective on the future food, beverage, and agriculture industries. Tony, welcome. Yeah, great to have you here. And perhaps to start off, Tony, as a food futurist, can you briefly define what future foresighting means for you and for the food system and what that looks like practically?
Well, first off, foresight is not about predicting the future. Unfortunately, we futurists aren't fortune tellers. But what we do is we look for signals of change. Something we notice has a significance in determining the future of the industry. These tell us that it's not going to be business as usual any longer, and the future will be very likely to be different to what it is today. The question is, how different? There's many ways the future could turn out, many alternative futures. And once organisations understand what the alternative futures are, they can put in place strategies to influence and deal with these futures. But one thing's for certain, the global food system of 2050 will look quite different to what it is today. I think new sources of food, especially protein, are going to be far more commonplace than the traditional animal agriculture that we see today.
Okay, that sounds like there are coming quite some challenges, but also opportunities, of course, for companies to step into this market. And with the future being created today, of course, how can companies backward this, outlook that you just described by 2050? How does that work?
Look, some people say, look, why bother exploring the future at all? It's so far out there. What's its relevance? And it's simple. We explore the future so we can make the best possible decisions today. It's about backcasting, understanding what the future could hold, and determining what strategies, steps, and resources need to be put in place to address those alternative futures I talked about earlier. And often companies will find there's a core set of strategies which will work under almost any futures, but there'll be strategies which are specific to each alternative future. And once you understand that, you can action these specific strategies as the actual future becomes apparent. And often you can do that before your organization's competitors.
And we and you help quite some companies with what we call horizon scanning or market landscaping. Can you tell or can you give some examples about the major consumer trends related to agri and food tech that you currently keep a close eye on?
I think the key one is, Fleur, is personalization. Now, whether we realize it or not, personalization is everywhere, from Netflix and Spotify recommendations to your supermarket loyalty programs. People are expecting their experience to be personalized, and food is not going to be immune to the trend. I find a future where people say, I want everything personalized, but not my food, leave it alone, highly unlikely. And the second consumer trend is we hear all the time, Gen Z this, Gen Z that, the other, or Gen Z if you're American friends. But if you're looking to the future of food, 2030, 2040, 2050, you need to be looking at the generation that comes after them. That's Generation Alpha, born 2010 to 2024. By the end of this year, there will be 2 billion Gen Alphas on the planet. And as a benchmark, at the end of the boomers in 1964, there were 3.5 billion people on the entire planet. And this generation are not just digital natives, they are technology natives. They have grown up with Spot, the Boston Dynamics dancing robot, SpaceX shooting rockets into space, mRNA vaccines, streaming video, streaming audio, and now generative AI. They will understand technology and they'll be accepting of technology in every part of their life, I think, including food.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, Tony. And going back to that earlier point around personalized nutrition, can you give some practical examples of what you then see as an outcome for food businesses to step into to utilize that opportunity, basically? I mean, I think, for example, immediately of the barista coffee milks, whereas now you don't just press on your machine and you want your regular coffee, you want a fully barista made version. One example, personalized nutrition, of course, and in the wellness trend, similar, but keen to hearing your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but often cliches are cliches because they're true. The most influential technology of the last 20 years is generative AI. And we're talking generative AI, not traditional AI with its nice, neat tables where the output of the AI is determined by explicit human programming, but generative AI where the AI learns from the data it's trained on and produces novel output. And it can take huge data sets into account, data sets the human mind can't even comprehend. So we'll be able to take all this data that we're collecting on ourselves from things like our smart watches, smart rings, genomics, the microbiome, and turn that into true personalization. So for the consumer, it's all about meaningful personalization, not an app on the phone that tells you to eat more veggies or whatever, personalized for you. Now, for industry, it's going to shorten the innovation cycle. So, used to be you had 18 months. Now, maybe you've got 8 months. I think in the future, you're going to have 18 weeks, if you're lucky, to go from an idea to being on the shelf. That is how fast things are going to move in the new product development, the NPD cycle. And I think the other thing that organizations should be concentrating on is any technology in their particular part of the food industry that either uses less or no arable land and less or no fresh water. We just had that new study come out, the economics of water, and it shows a worsening freshwater supply for the whole globe from now to the end of this century. So if you can use less fresh water, recycle, reuse, then that's going to be a great advantage to you.
Quite a lot of changes that you refer to, Tony. Keen to understand what mindset or cultural shifts would you see being different for organizations in the future than to how they act today? Because as we see, this is quite an implication, of course, on the way of doing business. Keen to hear the mindset or cultural shifts thoughts.
First of all, realize, like I said before, Fleur, no one can predict the future. There's many alternative futures. So flexibility and agility are essential. When you're looking to the future, forget about the usual 3-year, 5-year plan where you just take your current plan, add a year on the end at the end of every year. You have to look longer term. And if choosing 10 years is great, because most people, when you ask them what will you be doing in 10 years, go, I'm not really sure, I don't really know. Ask them what they'll be doing next year, next month, next week. They're usually pretty sure. So 10 years is a great time horizon. It opens up the mind to new possibilities. And in line with that, people are linear, technologies are exponential. A week is a week, a year is a year, people, but technologies are exponential. So it's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Now, if you're expecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to be out by a factor of 6. So as I say, it's dangerous to live linearly in an exponential world. So industries, organizations need to adopt an exponential, not a linear mindset.
That's quite a powerful statement, Tony. Thanks for that. And I fully agree, especially on the part where you mentioned that innovation is not going to take 18 months, but 18 weeks. So you're very quickly behind your peers are moving quickly into these markets and you missed the trend basically, then it's quite hard to keep up with it. And that's why we also, and you of course, help clients keep a sight on what's happening in the industry, why we also have those expert talks with you today. So I hope for our audience it's inspiring, and I want to ask you if there's a final statement or thought you would like to share with our listeners before we're wrapping it up.
Yeah, thanks, Fleur. I think I'm a techno-optimist. I believe there is no problem in the world that can't be solved through the proper application of technology. So the answer to feeding the growing global population of middle classes is technologies. Always has been, always will be. One thing to remember, you can't solve today's problems with yesterday's technologies.
Thanks. So that also means that you're very excited on seeing what else is coming to the market. And of course, why you're in this business as food futurists, constantly looking at what is going to happen into the future. And I'm super excited.
It's the most exciting time to be in the food industry I've seen in over 30 years. So if you're a food technologist in the food industry today, you are living in the most exciting time I've seen in over 30 years.
I love being in this industry as well, and I'm sure many of our listeners are too. So thanks so much, Tony, for sharing your thoughts today. It was a pleasure having you. And of course, I look forward to working way more again in the future with you. And for the listeners, stay tuned for our next BGP Expert Talk for corporate decision makers in AgriFood Tech. And meanwhile, you can follow us on LinkedIn. So thanks again, Tony, and have a great day.
Thanks, Fleur. Thanks for having me. Take care.